So to start today's conversation, Allie called the cops.
Can't hear you at all.
Oh, God.
No, no, no.
Oh, you called the police?
I did. But I don't know if it actually went through or not. So we'll
You
see.
have done it before?
Yeah, I did it at my place, and they can't. Like, I got on the phone with them after, and they said, "Well, we gotta." I told them it was an accident. They said, "Well, we gotta send somebody out because it happened."
Really?
And then the cop came out and talked to me, and he said it happens, but he said if it happened again within the month, that I would get a ticket for it. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No kidding?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's
took
crazy.
down all my information and like made an official report for it and everything.
Just because you accidentally hit the SOS
Yeah,
on your
same
phone.
thing. I put it in the cup holder, and that it just the levels
It's the
are
same height.
it's the same height
It's
where it
just-
just hits both buttons and just initiates the emergency response. Her mom did it too.
Yeah,
once
except we were playing bag toss, and so it actually called the police, and so they were on the phone, and she didn't know it, and so she was throwing bean bags, and they heard the loud, yeah, and so they're like, we're gonna come out and check it out just in case, but it's obviously nothing.
That's pretty wild, though. Because when it happened to me, no joke, I think I was driving or I was doing stuff, and I really was in that mindset of, you can't bother me right now. Like, I got too much going on, and I accidentally did it, and I kind of knew I did it, and they called me back. They were like, hey, we got a call from this number, SOS or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. They were just like, all right, well, have a good day. That happens. And that was it.
Yeah, I
So
would've
my
preferred that.
experience, maybe here in Wisconsin, they tighten that SOS up a little bit.
I
Maybe it
guess.
depends on the area if they have a lot going on or not.
Well,
So
There's a lot more domestic issues here with all the drinking and whatnot.
yeah, I mean, I could see that being true
Yeah.
based off. I went to a softball game with Jacob last night.
Oh yeah.
Dude, that was an experience. Like, the Wisconsin experience in general to me is so funny because it's a similar culture to where I grew up. Like, people absolutely are the same where I grew up, except for the open drinking. the ability to just kind of drink wherever you want is very different for
Yeah.
me. Like, Bruce is our buddy from Georgia, and he has hunted with us up here the last couple of years. And he rolls up to this game, and he is looking around all the players that are getting ready to go on the field. Which, also, side note, softball, huge turnout for it. I mean, for not huge, but for the local small town game, I'm like, that's a pretty good turnout.
Yeah.
But all the players are getting ready to play, and they all just got bush lights. They're throwing them into the, fence, and they're all creating a pile. And Bruce just looks at me. He's like, man, I was thinking about trying to smuggle a beer in here. And he's like, I don't know why I even thought about it. He's like, everybody's drinking. The players are drinking.
Yeah.
Umpires probably drinking.
Yeah.
And it was just an experience.
Yeah,
They're selling them there.
Yeah, they sell. I play in a league too, and the only rule is you can't drink it in the dugout. So nobody stays in the dugout. Everybody just hangs out with the fans when you're like at bat, so you can drink.
That's crazy, dude. I think that one of my favorite parts about traveling around is seeing those different cultures because, like Bruce said, he's like, people's language. He's like, man, just sitting at dinner, because we went out to eat last night. He's like, you just listen to the tables around. He's like, it's crazy what you're hearing. He's like, if that happened around where I grew up, you'd be getting a lot of looks. But everybody does it here, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just funny how different all that stuff is, which
Yeah.
it's pretty similar to where I grew up, so I relate to it pretty well, but the drinking thing is kind of like,
It's out of hand.
I don't think that it's necessarily, well, I don't know. It's not necessarily, it's out of hand for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that because I'd overdo it.
Yeah.
So I don't do it anymore. So that's intro to the podcast is Wisconsin likes to drink, which is no surprise. You guys ever see those maps? Certainly you have, where it's
the
like,
most drunk states, yeah.
Or counties,
And
even,
counties,
and it's the
yeah.
entire state of Wisconsin.
it's like
just no
dark
clue.
red.
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever it is. Like, whatever's the peak, it's the darkest.
We win, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not really
Undisputed.
Not really that surprising, though, when you see something like that softball game like I saw
Yeah,
last night.
It makes sense.
Yeah. But the other cool thing about Wisconsin, and something that I joke about a lot, is they love to hunt. Y'all Wisconsin folk love to hunt. No matter where I'm at in the country, there's that Wisconsin plate sitting right in the same pull-off I want to go to. But it is cool, and ultimately I think it's cool that you guys have hunted together since you guys have started hanging out. being boyfriend, girlfriend.
Well,
Talking.
just talking.
That's all you guys are
We're
kind of
just
doing.
talking.
Ta- So once y'all started talking, y'all started hunting together, and then ultimately, Allie became the star of the turkey tour this season. That's my belief. What's your belief? You don't like that. You don't want any part of that when I say that.
No, originally too, when we went turkey hunting and Hayden was telling me that he was gonna film everything, I really was against it. But I told him he could do it if nobody would ever see it. And then it was kind of a wild hunt. And then he was like, I'm gonna just put together a video. And then he made an original one. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then he sent it to you, and then it turned out pretty comical. So I was okay with it then. But
I knew from the beginning it was going to be used if something cool happened.
yeah.
I mean, I think the part about it that I really liked is it's just you guys having fun, and I think that's the most enjoyable part. If you're listening to this and you haven't seen the video that we're talking about, I'm not really even sure when we're going to post the podcast that we're recording right now, but what was the episode number, do you know? 36 or 7?
37, somewhere around there. It was like the second to last one of the turkey tour, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this hunt that we're referring to, and you should totally watch it. It's not a super long video, but it makes you feel good. Like every time I watched it, which I watched it even after I touched it up, probably 7 times. No joke. I would show it to I showed it to my dad. I showed it to Whitney. I watched it the day after I posted it. Just really enjoyed that video. I really did.
Yeah.
I think that it really comes down to just having fun.
Yeah.
And it's
It was a
relatable
super
too.
fun. Yeah, it was a super fun trip. And like the first time we went to Minnesota, it was that my first time turkey hunting?
Mhm.
Yeah, ever turkey hunting. So I had no idea what I was doing. So I was like just kind of learning on the fly. And I made a lot of mistakes. And so I think it was just even more exciting too when I finally got one. And I even kind of made a comment about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of the footage too in the truck, I was initially like absolutely traumatized that he used it because I did not know Hayden was recording me, and so I had no idea like what was on the GoPro because after the trip he's like, oh yeah, and I was like recording in the truck, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was just being a goof because that's just how I am.
Yeah.
But that's what I.
Only
But that's
Hayden,
what.
but like.
That's what I want to see. That's what everybody wants to see. Is everybody having fun and goofing? Because that's what, at least for me, what hunting memories really are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had a good time.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
And Allie, on camera versus off camera is very different because Allie does not like attention in any. That's why she didn't want the footage to be used or didn't want me to record at all. And like private social media just does not like attention. So I knew I had to secretly record her every chance I got to get the true Allie. And now
What's your strategy there?
Yeah.
Like, are you waiting for her to look away?
But no,
Yeah,
now I know when the GoPro's
Yeah.
on. I did not know because he had it because like you can't tell even though the screen's like facing you.
Yeah.
It's like black. It doesn't show the image, and it'll flash red. And so now every time I get in the truck, I like look at that because I know what to look for if you're secretly trying to be sneaky.
Well, mine has a piece of stealth strip on it.
Don't
so
tell
you
her.
can't-
Don't tell her.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was wondering why it wasn't flashing.
Oh my goodness! I gave
Okay.
away the
Yeah.
secret. Oh, there's so many ways still around
Yeah.
it.
I'm gonna turn that function off so you don't know. But my strategy was to turn the GoPro on before she got in the truck, so she wouldn't see me hit record, and then it would just roll it as much as I could when she didn't know.
Something that I started doing was using a remote,
Mm-hmm.
so I can just have it on my wrist. So as I'm with people in the vehicle, I can just click it, and they have no idea unless they see it flash on. But otherwise, it could be rolling for like 20 minutes. And
Yeah.
even when it is rolling for 5-10 minutes, you start to forget and just keep doing your thing anyway. So it always ends up getting something funny.
Yeah.
And I don't know. To me, again, that's what I like watching because the conversations that you guys are having are exactly what I would expect Whitney and I to have as we're doing anything, whether it's hunting or just going for a hike or just driving to the store for that matter. It's just so relatable.
Yeah.
Like, did you toot?
Yeah.
I think I ask you that like 10 times a day.
Yeah. Well, I fart a lot, especially when I'm turkey hunting. That was one thing she
That
noticed.
is immediately that first time I went with him. If we get like close to a turkey, I can smell it. Not because I can smell the
Start getting
turkey, I
worked up
smell
when there's one in
Hayden.
range.
'Cause,
So
like,
she knows there's birds close when she starts smelling farts.
That's a what do you even call that? A nose cue. You get a visual, that's cue. But you get a nose cue, you know they're on them, man. That's so funny. I like that, and then I also like look at that house up there. Can we afford that? That's so funny to me.
There were some really nice houses that we drove past.
Oh, yeah.
I know, and I was like kind of laughing because like Hayden's like, nah, we're just like, yeah, we're broke, and then I just kind of laughed, and Hayden's like, well, in that sense, yeah, because I was like, we're not broke, we have a house, like, because we make a joke that we live in a truck, but he's like, in that sense, yeah, because it's like multi-million-dollar homes that just are ridiculous. Maybe someday.
Yeah, if we can get enough of these out the door, right?
Well, I'm just relying on Allie becoming an NP, and then she's going to be the breadwinner.
We'll see if I make it through this class this summer.
So what do you feel like some of the mistakes that you made turkey hunting that you know now are things that you're going to continue to do in the future that maybe you didn't know that first time? Because I feel like watching people grow as a hunter is becoming more and more enjoyable to me, whether I'm with them or the situation where I can just watch it. Seeing your excitement when you finally connect shows that you've definitely been trying, and you've been trying to learn, and I feel that that's just enjoyable, and we can all learn from those things, because even if we know them now, good solid reminders of certain lessons are always good.
Yeah. I think that first time in Minnesota, there was like 2 opportunities where you said if it was you would have been able to get it to kill the turkey. But one of the times it like popped its head up super fast, and my ability to like know where it was going to be coming from, like based off of hearing it, I feel like that has definitely gotten better with time and like experiencing getting close to a lot of turkeys, because like I had no idea where to expect its head to pop up, and I didn't really know that it would just like act like that and pop its head over a ridge for like 2 seconds, and you're supposed to shoot it, and that, you know, and so like it did that, and it like looked at us, and then it flew away because like I couldn't react fast enough. So I think that I just got a little bit quicker at like finding it, which was definitely helpful. But
just anticipating what's going to happen based on how the turkey's acting.
Yeah. Thank you. But like, I mean, in this instance, I could see them all coming, so it made it a little bit easier. But I think even making the decision of like knowing when it would be okay to shoot at one of them, because like they were all super close together, and you obviously can't shoot one of them when they're that close together because you might hit several. And so I think just like knowing to wait until that one fell behind.
That was very good. That was really impressive that you did that, because it's really hard to not get caught up in that moment and just get your beat on one of them. So that was really cool that you did, and you totally singled that one out. I mean, there was one behind it, but you had a perfect lane right to the one. So that was really good.
Yeah, I kind of just like sat on that tree that it was next to and like waited for one to be alone. So it kind of just fell behind at the perfect moment too. But I think that definitely, I don't know if I would have been able to do that if that was my first experience, like getting a shot at a turkey. And then when was the other time? We went that same first year that I went turkey hunting around here, that I actually did shoot at one and miss it, which was super sad because I couldn't really tell how far away it was. So I got better at gauging that too, because in my mind it was in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
But we were like on a fence line, and so we like had crawled, and then I had to just like pop up and shoot at it, and so I like thought that it looked like it would be close enough for me to hit, and then I popped up and shot at it, and it just flew away. And so that was really sad too. I was pretty devastated after that one.
I think that was my fault too, because I did say like I think he's in range.
It was hard to tell.
It was hard to tell, and I don't hunt around fields very often, so that depth perception's a lot different than when you're in the timber. You have no reference of how far they are, and I think it was just a little too far.
Was he
for
getting
the
out of town, or was he still pretty relaxed?
He was coming, but there was a hen that was getting really close.
To us.
The hen was at like 5 to 10 yards probably, and about to pop into that grass we were using as cover. So I was kind of I think I rushed it based on that hen potentially getting us, and thought he was within 40 yards, but I think he was more like 45, 50 yards when she shot. So, and then we had another encounter after that where we went into that block of woods that was across that field, and we walked up on another one that probably could have shot potentially, but I think you just weren't great initially at like seeing the birds fast and like looking for movement as opposed to trying to just see a turkey. I think you were just looking for a turkey instead of looking for movement, or like easily identifying a red head and stuff like that. I think you've gotten much better at that now.
Yeah, because I feel like I realized too that a lot of times you don't get to see their whole body right away. It's literally just their head, like boop, and
Yeah.
they just pop up out of nowhere, and yeah,
Things happen fast too. Like
yeah,
that's something that as I watch again newer hunters doing this, there's so many things that happen fast, and I take for granted the 20 plus years I've been doing it to just be like bang.
Mm-hmm.
Or even not to pick on him or throw him under the bus, but like Colin in 2021, my buddy Colin had a turkey pop up, and he's like, "There he is." This is how drawn out it was. There he is, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on him." And he's like, "Want me to shoot him?" I'm like, "Yeah." And like this whole time, I'm holding my breath, like holding myself up with my abs at the camera, like trying not to jump. And then he's like, "Okay, click, safety off." And I'm like, "Oh, look at,
Oh,
you gotta
no.
do it now," And we got him, and it worked out. But if I was filming like Ben, for example, who that day was calling and dropped back behind us, had I been filming him, it would have been like, "You on him? Yep." Just a much quicker. But not to say that. Yeah, also, Colin was shooting the gun right-handed when he's left-handed, so
Mhm.
keep that in mind. Like that's not just to say that he's out there totally goofing off, but you take those little things for granted because, I mean, like you said, Allie, he might pop his head up and be there for 2 seconds and get out of town.
Yeah.
yeah,
I do feel too that visual aspect of hunting is something that, as it plays out for your experience level, right? Like you start to expect certain things, you anticipate. But if you've never done it before, that's really hard to do. And I, again, take that type of stuff for granted. So trying to set things up to where if you're with the new hunter, how do you set it up to be able to really get a good visual, have the time, be able to take time, and even things like setting up and stuff like that. I just, in my head, it's like, well, we just plop down by this tree and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not always that simple if you've never done that. And I think that's a big part of it for me that's been a fun lesson is how do I take a step back and think, okay, let's just find a place that really is going to be able to cover us well and be comfortable, things like that. I mean, are there things that come to mind for you that have been challenges that your expectation was one thing and then you started to kind of, I guess, understand different aspects of it?
I feel like I've just been kind of learning a lot from watching Hayden and asking him a lot of questions. Like I feel like like especially even after going for a couple of years now, still struggle with like knowing like where to pick to sit down because Hayden will be like, "Oh, we're gonna sit right here because he's calling over there and he's gonna walk across right here and come in right here and then you're gonna shoot him." And I'm like, "How do you know that?" And so it's just kind of been like interesting because then he'll explain to me like why he's predicting that, or he'll be like, "They won't want to go down here." Like I don't even know how to. Cause
No,
like
that's all making it really
Yeah.
is making perfect sense of
Yeah.
why that would be something you would ask a question about.
yeah, because like I mean, he like I don't want to explain it incorrectly, but like if they're on a certain level, like you're explaining to me like the one that you shot in Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
that like we had to go across the ridge because otherwise it wouldn't come to us probably because it wouldn't want to go down and over that ridge. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So it's like little pieces like that. I feel like I'm learning how to better plan for like when the turkey actually comes in, which is super helpful, but I definitely still need a lot of help.
Yeah, I think you've gotten better at identifying what turkey habitat is too. Because like
Mhm.
there was that time this year where I was gone hunting and you went on a walk around here just on, like I don't know if you could hunt there or not, but you texted me and said the place I'm walking right now looks like great turkey habitat.
So it looks very turkey-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, so like identifying that turkey habitat too, I feel like you've gotten better at that, and just sign in general. Because like when we're
Mhm.
walking around, pointing sign out, like
Scratches
scratching
and stuff.
and
Yeah.
all that stuff, you've gotten better woodsmanship skills that can apply to a lot of different areas other than just turkey hunting too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still working on the owl hoot though. It's pretty sad right now.
Give us your best one.
Mm-mm. No, it's not. It's not ready. I'm working on the turkey call too. I mean, I'm trying to do the mouth
Been
one.
working on the little ones.
The little ones? Oh, you mean on here?
When you in
Yeah.
that video, you walk up, you're like, how do I do the little ones? I think that's so funny too.
Yep.
Are you doing the like a friction call, or are you the the circle and stick one, or
Yeah.
are you using
The
the
crystal, you're
diaphragm?
saying?
Yeah.
The crystal, I feel like I've gotten better. Like I can make it actually sound like a turkey with the crystal. The diaphragm call I'm struggling with, but I feel like it's slowly making
That's
progress.
pretty cool.
Maybe in like 2 years it'll be there.
But that's okay.
Yeah, it
So-
took me more than a year and a half, 2 years before I got anywhere close to good. I think you give up on it. You'll do it frequently, but you'll do it for like 30 seconds. And go, nah, that sounds bad, and then just stop. I think you just need to kind of commit to it.
It helps when like he'll have a call in too, and then he'll like make a sound, and I'll try and match it.
Yep.
Because then I can just keep like moving my tongue and pushing my air in different ways to try and get it to sound like that.
Mhm.
But we'll
And
mean-
slowing it down, I feel like when you're trying, you kind of try to go too fast and get the full sequence instead of just like focusing on single notes at a time and just kind of blow consistent air across and move your tongue around and try to just feel the call out. I think that's something that eventually, when you keep doing that, you'll get better at it. But you did improve a lot this year. Like, there was a couple times where it sounded like a turkey.
cool.
I feel like at least with the crystal call in that video, there's some definitely enough there to call in a turkey.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Crystal Lamb and I were talking about if we would ever go hunting, like as us girls, that's like the only thing we can do is really the crystal call.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, well, what are we gonna do? Like if a turkey gets close and it can see us? And I was like, well, we can just hide under that leafy blanket. One of us can just like be under there scratching. But hopefully we'll figure out the diaphragm call by then.
I mean, there's a lot of hunters that never figure out the diaphragm
Mhm.
call for one reason or another. So that's why I think it's cool that you're trying it because, I mean, again, not to throw anybody under the bus, but my dad isn't really crushing the diaphragm call. He's more of a friction call, like he'll use a slate or a crystal, and I think that that's okay too, because obviously you can still be effective. I just personally like the sound of a diaphragm call. I think that's why I'm more drawn to it than anything, and I feel like I can be more versatile with it. But it certainly takes a long time. Like your expectation of maybe a couple years is probably pretty accurate. And I think that along those lines too, there is a hurdle of being frustrated that you got to get over, where it's like, yeah, you're going to sound terrible for a while, but you got to just keep doing it. For example, when I first started elk calling, I go back and I watch the Snapchats that I have of me like trying it in the house and stuff. What was that? But like I just kept trying it, and I luckily had enough experience with a turkey diaphragm that I figured it out fairly quickly. But man, it's crazy when you start something new like that, how ridiculous it feels. But if you get frustrated and throw it down, say, I can't do it, well then yeah, you're probably never going to be able to do it. And I mean, I'm not necessarily speaking at you, I'm speaking to everybody listening. It's like those are just those hurdles you gotta just keep pushing past, because once you do, all of a sudden you'll be like, man, I got this down. Even Hayden and I were talking about doing a kiki on a mouth call today. Kiki.
That's
And-
her favorite.
The Tawiti.
That's such a hilarious moment.
I love that clip.
But we were talking about it is a good it's a great clip because it's just having some guys having fun out there. But we were talking about that and how when I'm in the car and I'm doing it over and over and over again, I can do it on command, to the point of if you took me out of the vehicle doing it constantly, put me in front of a turkey, 100% confident. But if I pop a call in right now, it's probably going to take me 10, 15 minutes to even be able to do it at all. But hopefully by next season, I can do it every single time on command. That's the goal. But to reach that goal, I figure I'm probably going to have to do it. At least work on it once a week, every week out of the year, if not every day, And I just think that if you like that aspect of hunting, put it in your car, find these quiet places where you can just do it,
Put it in your truck and call it all the time.
Yeah.
When you drive around with Allie.
She can take like 15 to 30 minutes of me doing it and be like, okay,
That's
can
enough.
that be enough for today?
Then I'll switch to the owl hoots in the car.
Yeah.
That'll be another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But really, to get to a level where you're confident with it, I think is a big part of it. So I think about all the time, you get a tom gobbling coming in, your heart's up, your heart rate's up, or you're trying to bugle to an elk and your heart rate's up, like all those things, when that adrenaline's pumping, it's really hard to focus in and have the confidence to even do it in the first place. Even though you may be nailing it in the truck, getting the live hunting situation, you're like, swallowing the diaphragm. And I just think that to get to that level where you're just like, I know I can do that, it's just really gets pretty annoying, even to yourself. Like, I annoy myself calling, really.
Yeah.
It's like finally my mouth is like dried out and my tongue's tired, and I'm just like, all right, I got to be done with this for the rest of the day, or at least for a couple hours.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that the setup part of it is something that I'm curious about. Like, Hayden told me that you guys had the sticks, and that's something that Whitney and I worked on. I got her one of those knee pads, and that has the little gun rest in it. It's kind of a handy little deal.
Yeah.
Might be worth checking out. I think they're like $9.
I think the issue that Allie had with it, I think even the knee pad, like the way she sits, it's too low still where she can't rest it on there. And like that was one of the main issues those first couple of years, especially when it's taken 10 to 15 minutes for a bird to come in and you're trying to hold the gun up. Like, and she's using my 12 gauge full gun that gets a little heavy.
I don't know how you do that because I don't think I want to carry Hayden's gun. And I'm like, Whitney had the option on this past week's 4 days of hunting. She had the option to take a 410 or the 20 gauge. And about every time she had the chance, she'd take the 410, unless we were like, this might be a brushier situation where you might have to punch through a little bit more stuff. So she would go back and forth, but like carrying that 410, pretty slick.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you feel like the shooting sticks made a big? You mentioned that in the video.
That and the red dot. That was my first time shooting at a turkey with the red dot.
Yeah.
And I loved that. Yeah.
So
It's
just
very nice.
not having to worry about lining beads up and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't have the best vision to begin with, so I feel like I mean, like trying to focus on that little dot for so long, like the BB, like was really hard for me. And so like being able to just like set up, have the red dot, and like wait until I was like able to move it to get on a turkey was way better for me, at least.
And not having to
It's
worry
really
about your
helpful.
face position, like
Yeah,
your
'cause-
head has flexibility to move
Yeah.
around, and that red dot adjusts for that. So I think that was helpful too.
It's a really cool tool. Yeah.
I do think it's. I wouldn't say I was ever against it. I just don't know that it's totally for me. But I'm kind of getting towards the point where I'm feeling like maybe I ought to give it a shot. I just want them to be tight to my gun barrel. That's all I really want. I just like everything being condensed, because I've seen some people's red dots that stand way up on the gun, and when my aim point is here, but my actual barrel is here, I worry about branches that I can't see in front of my barrel because my visual through the scope is clear.
Or full logs, Ben.
Yeah, yeah, we just talked
And that was
about
with the bead too, I think.
Yeah,
right?
it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But that just goes to show.
yeah, there was a turkey that popped its head up right behind the log, and he was right on it with the bead, but it hit the log low because of the difference, like that slight difference, even being on the bead.
Isn't that crazy?
That is really wild.
It was all very close quarters. So I think the turkey, no joke, was from here to the tripod, and the log was like where the lithium box is there. And just the way that we were kind of shooting right over that log, or Ben was shooting over that log, his bead looked clear, but just that, I mean, literally
Wow.
I don't know, not even a half an inch made a difference, and he just stuffed to that log and the turkey flew away. It's hilarious.
Oh, sad.
Sandhills.
Sandhills. What is it? June 1st. Well, who's here? Can never give it up. It'll be July, and a crow will go flying over and be like, listen. As far as like setting up, and are there any hurdles there too? Just like actually sitting down or picking a spot to position your body? Because I feel like as I've been doing that with Whitney, I'm realizing, man, there's so many little details of this that you have to just gain that experience for. Has there been any situations that come to mind?
I mean, yeah, for actually when I was the cameraman for Hayden, it was not an ideal setup, and it was tough because we had to like hurry up. I mean, the turkey was coming in pretty fast, wasn't he? He was like coming. I mean, we had to set up kind of quick. So we like got in our spot and there was this huge log that we were like ended up being behind though because we couldn't tell. Was it coming in too fast?
No,
Or why did
I
we not
just
go in
figured
front
if we
of it?
got anywhere past that log, we had a risk of blowing them out.
Oh,
So
okay.
we used that log as
So
front
we were
cover.
behind it. Yeah. And
So the log's horizontal.
but
Yep.
we were on a hill, and so like the log was like this, and so Hayden was set up, and then to try and get the footage and guess where the turkey was gonna actually come in, he was like, "Well, why don't you come down here?" And then I tried to do that, but I don't even know what the issue was. But I like
wanted
couldn't
you over my
see.
right shoulder, but
Yeah.
I think it was like too tall for you, or you just couldn't like sit.
I like tried to sit down, but then I was like underneath the log, and I was like, okay. I was like, well, now I gotta hurry up. I was like, I gotta go on the other side of you. So I like quick went on the other side of him, and then I was like sitting on a stick that was jabbing me. It was just not good. And then I was like filming downhill and couldn't really see the turkey when it came in, so that was a huge bummer. So
Did you get him?
Oh yeah.
he got him. Yeah.
I
And
got
so
him.
I definitely missed the shot.
I got him. The footage
then-
is kind of just wide and not where the turkey was.
It was horrible. It was so bad. I literally, and I think I even said, like, Hayden went running over to the turkey, and it was just me sitting there with the camera yet. And I was like, sorry, Hayden. Yeah, and then I, like, I messed something up with the GoPro, too. Filming is hard. Like, I did not, props to you guys, because I did not realize how hard it would be. I was like, yeah, I got this. I can record you shooting a turkey.
Oh yeah, I got
Yeah.
this.
I was like, it ain't no thing. So I literally then grabbed the GoPro. I'm like, okay, I'll have the footage on the camera and the GoPro. One of them has to be good. Well, the camera was off, and then the GoPro, I must have like knocked off the stabilization.
Yeah, I don't know
but
what happened.
we watched the footage later, and it's like this. As I'm like walking over to Hayden, and I was like, what is happening? So that was a complete miss of filming
There
that.
was also funny. The GoPro clip before I shot's really funny too, because I was ready to shoot him, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said, "You good?" Boom. Like I didn't even finish
wait.
saying good, and I pulled the trigger. I didn't think I had like target panic, but the more I've seen like GoPro clips of me pulling the trigger, actually, like I punched the trigger pretty bad, and like do not do the slow pull that I do when I'm practicing. Yeah.
I just think it was funny how before you even finished, I don't even think you finished, "Are you good?"
Yeah.
before you pulled the trigger, and I could have been like, no.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like last year. It's kind of I shouldn't get into the details because I'll draw it out way too long. But Keith was on gun. I was on camera. Ben was gonna drop back call, and there was this Tom that I had been hunting with other people, and I had heard him in this area and actually seen him a couple times. But he was toying with the line, and he was roosting on the public, but he was going on to the private, and it had turned to where we could hunt all day in Ohio, because the first half of the season in Ohio you can actually only hunt till noon, which is very different than here, because you can hunt all day here all season.
Yep.
And we had an evening that we could go. We go in there, and he gobbles on the way in on his own. It's like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. And we get up on the ridge that we figure he's gonna roost on, and we start hearing what sounds like turkeys walking in front of us. Well, we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, pow, he gobbles, and it's like right on top of us. Well, I also knew there was a couple jakes hanging out in that area too. And Keith and I slide right to where we can see, 20, 30 yards in front of us. And I'm right behind him, right over his right shoulder, and the turkey starts moving, and we can tell it's moving, and all of a sudden Keith goes, "There he is. You see him?" And I'm like, I think I start to say, I can't be sure. I shouldn't say exactly what it is. I can probably just drop the clip in here. But it's something along the lines of like, "You on him?" Or no, he doesn't say you're on him. That's the thing. He just says, "Do you see him?" And I'm like, "Yep." And I'm just starting to get my, self collected here. And boom, he shoots. And it's the Jake. It's not the Tom.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, you could tell that it was a bearded turkey, but he shoots, and we run up there. It's just like Jake, and it's just so funny because it was a moment where Keith just got so ultra aggressive. You know, he just took it to another level. So I think it's kind of a funny. It's a kind of a funny step in hunting, right? A lot of times when you're younger and hunting, less experience, you're kind of timid. You don't make that extra move. Well, this is a moment where Keith nailed it as far as the aggression goes, but nailed it so much that he shot the Jake and not the Tom. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
But I think that's a funny moment.
Yeah.
Kind of a funny learning moment too, where it's like, well, we had all the time in the world. That turkey had no idea. We weren't calling to him. We
Yeah.
just knew they were going to come back on that ridge to roost. And I just think it's funny because it goes at first timid to, okay, you're getting the hang of it, getting more aggressive, to all of a sudden you're so confident that you get too aggressive.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a funny
Yeah.
learning lesson as well.
I think that's one thing you've gotten better on too, where like I know you're more confident in identifying like a Tom versus a Jake,
Mhm.
where like those first 2 years it was like I knew I had to like walk through everything or like make sure I communicated everything, but in that Minnesota hunt, like it got to the point where it was so hectic I couldn't communicate, but I knew you knew what you were doing to trust that you were gonna make the right decision.
I think I even said in that video, I was literally like, can you tell me which one to shoot? And you're like, yeah, I will. And then like, it came down to it, and I was like, I knew you wouldn't be able to tell me. So
Yeah, and I knew I couldn't, but I also, like I said, knew that I knew you knew what to do. You maybe weren't confident enough to say it in the moment, but like I knew that you would make the right decision.
But I feel like throughout all the turkey hunts we've been on together, you did a pretty good job communicating like what to expect and stuff. So that was really helpful. Except for that one time that you were like, I was asking him where the turkey was because he could see it. He's like, it's behind the tree. And I was like, we're in the woods.
Zach's had
Which
many
tree?
experiences with me like that. He
I was
pokes
like, you
fun at me.
gotta be more specific.
I've been working on that.
You have gotten better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say.
Behind the tree.
I was like, look around.
Green stuff. Oh, that's hilarious. I just think that target acquisition is something that, again, take for granted, and something that I've thought about a lot as I want to go out with Whitney and for myself too. This isn't just for a new hunter, just continuing practice. Like, I think it's easy to say shooting a gun is easy, especially as you've done it for a handful of years. But at the same time, keeping your skills fresh, just like you do with a bow. Like, I shoot a bow all summer long. Even in the winter, you shooting your bow. It's like let's get reps with the bow. But then you neglect the gun, which with a shotgun, you don't always have to be super precise. But we had this whole conversation the other day that we actually recorded for a podcast about our misses. And Bruce, our friend from Georgia, and Ted were a part of it, which between the two of them,
Had their fair share of misses.
you know where I'm going with that. But it's just interesting to listen to, the thought process and kind of what happens in that moment. But one way to help that, I think, is if you're newer to hunting or have hunted your whole life and you're extremely experienced, shoot a gun that's really easy to shoot. A 22 or bird loads out of a shotgun, like a low gauge shotgun, 410, 20 gauge, whatever, and just get reps, shoot clay pigeons. And I feel like stuff like that is stuff that my grandpa got me into at a young age. And again, just took it for granted that, oh yeah, you can pick up a shotgun, shoulder it, and in like 1 second be on whatever my target is, as long as it's inside of 25 yards or whatever. Because I shot trap like crazy when I was a teenager. And when you do that over and over again, you just get this confidence. And I feel like handling the gun and all that is all stuff that I realize now as I'm helping Whitney get into hunting, that that's some stuff that not only her, but I could benefit from as well. Let's just go out and plink. And we do. And I've got plenty of experiences where we've done it, but we could do it more.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that's something that would help you, Allie?
Like practicing
Just
shooting.
Just shooting.
Yeah, I do think that. And I think, well, even before like we started hunting this turkey season, I mentioned to Hayden, I was like, can we just like go out and shoot your gun a couple times just so I can like feel comfortable about it? Because at that point I still hadn't shot a turkey successfully yet. So I think it helped to like come out here and shoot it a couple
Mhm.
times and prove to myself that I can hit the target.
Insert slow-mo clip of Allie getting absolutely
Oh.
rocked by that 12 gauge.
Yeah, Hayden took us, a really good clip. There's a good clip of you too, where
Yeah.
like you can
Oh, my
see
whole
it.
body
You can
ripples.
literally see the ripples in his skin after he shoots it.
Yeah,
It's
but
pretty
like he's
great.
saying, using a smaller gauge to do it would probably be a good thing. And just
Yeah.
getting you a smaller gauge gun, I think, would be good.
My own, you're saying, so I have
Yes.
to keep using yours.
Yeah.
I like yours though.
Well, you can get that same exact gun in a smaller gauge to
I
where it
can,
doesn't wallop you.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
I mean,
it's
even
kind
me.
of fun to.
You
get
like
walloped.
that?
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's just it intensifies the hunt when you shoot a turkey and it's just absolutely bang, you know.
Okay, we on a different wavelength there. When I was younger, I used to really not like it. I mean, I can handle obviously shooting a 12 gauge shotgun, but I'd rather not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm in the same boat. I'd rather just shoot the 410, you know.
I was really scared to recoil when I was first starting to deer hunt. Like, even the 308's not a huge caliber, but like, I would shoot it 2-3 times and I'd be like, I'm done. This hurts.
Mhm.
And it's gotten better over time, but like that's certainly something, and can affect like target panic and like just anticipating the recoil. Like,
I think one of the sole reasons that I stayed in to shooting guns is because I shot small calibers a lot, even into high school. Like, I was talking to all those guys when we were doing that Miss podcast about how we used to just. I lived in a place similar to this setting where it's like you got woods and everything, and we had safe places to plink around. Me and my buddies in the wintertime, between, the peaks of the other hunting seasons that we were out, we would just we'd rabbit hunt, and if the weather was bad or we were bored of rabbit hunting, we'd go shoot 22s, and we would just have these little competitions where, a guy would bet the other guy, You could even play little games too, like pig or make bets or whatever, and it's just fun, just like you were doing with basketball. We'd play that.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, freehand at this distance, pick your shot, and I just always enjoyed that. But it's a fun way to make really quality practice time, because again, if you're shooting a caliber too, or a smaller gauge shotgun, if you're doing that and you're getting comfortable, in the heat of that moment, you're going to be able to just squeeze through the trigger. And while you might get popped with it, with recoil, you're going to be able to just relax through that a little bit better. At least I can.
Mhm.
Allie enjoys that part,
Yeah.
so
I
I
just
can't
feel
speak
like I
for
wasn't
her.
even thinking about the fact
Not
that the
in
gun
the
was
heat
gonna
of the
hit
moment.
me. Yeah,
Not in
I
the heat of
just-
the moment.
Yeah, I was so focused. I was like, I can't miss this turkey.
I think in the heat of the moment, you can forget about that, but I also think sometimes we
Subconsciously.
yeah,
Just
subconsciously squeeze a little bit and wince. But
Yeah.
do you have any other situations that you feel like were challenging that if you could go back again you would tackle differently? Either one of you guys? I'm asking these questions because I feel like I can relate really well, because Whitney's on her second year trying. We've been dang close. She missed one. She's had a lot of very similar experiences.
I feel like sometimes it's good to like shoot at one and miss one, because then you'd be like, wow, if I would have done this instead. I feel like it helped me, because it was like made me feel a lot of sad emotions, but it also like solidified in my brain, like, you got to try harder. You got to learn how to do this differently if you really want to succeed. So I feel like it was kind of good that I missed that one.
Mm-hmm.
Failure's your best teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I think one other thing, like in regards to the setup too, is like knowing your strong side and your weak side, and like I don't remember if I coached you through it or if you just did this naturally on the Minnesota hunt this year, but like I told you where I thought they were going to go to, which is the point of that ridge. So when you set up where you would have a shot at those turkeys before they got to your weak side on the right, and if they did pop up further to the left, like you can swing on that a lot easier to your strong side, and like just understanding the positioning of your body when you set up and knowing that it's a lot easier to swing to the left as a right-handed shooter than it is to go across your body and not have to shoot off-handed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one. I don't remember if I told you which way to I think you just knew to set up towards, because I said I think they're going to come out here, so you set up where you would have a shot at them before they got to that point to your left side.
I really wanted to get one, so I wanted to make sure wherever that turkey popped up, I could.
Yeah.
But that's good. That's anticipating it is a major challenge of it, I feel like, because it all happens so fast, and our experience that just happened, knowing that strong and weak side is something that, again, just hits home, and it's relatable because we had a very similar situation to to what you just said, I guess, of knowing that difference. Like, we set up on this edge, and there was basically an edge straight down the gun. Everything to the left of it was open, but of course, turkey comes to the right side. I was sitting on Whitney's right because it's the same deal as a cameraman. This is irrelevant to hunting strategy, kind of, but as a cameraman, it's so much easier to still go to the left than it is to kind of go to the right to stay with the turkey. I'm basically just mirroring whoever I'm filming. Well, turkey starts to go up to the right, and as he's doing that, he's cutting distance pretty quick. He was hung up a little bit, but Bruce was back behind us calling, and turkey's loving it, and he starts coming up to the right, and he gobbles, and it's like, dang it, he's definitely right on the verge of being able to see us. And he's, at this point, Whitney's gun barrel is here, and he's like here, which isn't too bad, right? Like, that's still doable. And she was on sticks, which has pros and cons, certainly. I think for the waiting game, it was great because she just hands-free, basically. It's just hanging off her armpit. But then the turkey starts to come even further to the right, and she had kind of gotten turned now to where she's here, but he's even further this direction. And in that situation, your body's in such an awkward position that he came in, stopped at like 10 yards, gobbles directly behind the brush, struts around, and then finally breaks and comes back to the left, which is exactly what we need him to do. But he does it so fast, and he comes in, kind of quarter strut, and just goes all in one motion, just like up, putt, away, and there's just enough stuff in between. And Whitney told me later, especially after talking about the misses, she sat there and was listening to the whole conversation we had when we did the podcast about missing. And she said that one thing that I realize is I was aiming so precise, and when he was moving, I was worried about being, making that perfect shot, and wasn't even thinking about the fact that my pattern would go down through there, not only knock through that brush, but just casting a wider net, I guess. And what I learned from that then as a mentor, I suppose, is discussing that strong side and weak side of your shooting, but also practicing shooting, because, again, target acquisition is really challenging, especially when the turkey's at point blank moving really fast. Like, he just comes in, and, I mean, don't get me wrong, with more experience, it's going to be a pretty straightforward shot. It kind of helps that he's close a little bit because he's had more to aim at, I suppose, but I didn't take that into consideration. Took it for granted. It's like, oh yeah, like, it's me with that 410, I'm just going to go and get him. But, like, when you haven't been doing it, but, 8 days of your life, really, in the grand scheme of it, it's pretty challenging to pull that off. And it worked out because he just went right over to Jake, and Jake got him. It's pretty hilarious. But I feel like one thing that's been fun to watch Whitney improve on, and Hayden, maybe you've recognized this with Allie as well, is just when you get into that setup, just getting ready and being set up and pointing at that spot that makes sense. Like, sometimes Whitney and I don't have time to even talk about that, but she just gets her gun up in that position where there is a true shooting lane. And I think watching that evolve, and I think one thing too that we take for granted as the more experienced of a pair is you visualize it in your head, and you're like, well, I'd just set up and point my gun right there, of course. But then there's times where Whitney would get into a setup, and she'd be like, well, I don't have anywhere to shoot. And in my head, it's like, well, yeah, you could shoot through here, but if it comes over here, you can go over here. And it's like, that's not realistic right out of the gate. Yeah. Though that's a huge hurdle for me as the mentor. Like, really, to start, my opinion, having done it a couple of years fairly unsuccessfully, it's just like, make it the most obvious setup. And if he doesn't go there, then try to make it work, but also just be okay that you're not going to get him.
Yeah.
Because really, that just sure thing is kind of what I feel like I need to do a better job of trying to set that up every time. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Go for the better setup where you're comfortable. Do you feel like that makes a difference?
I do. Yeah. I honestly really like when I'm able to see the turkey like the whole time, so I know, or like at least like have a really good idea of where it's gonna come out. Because I don't like being surprised. Because then I feel like you said, everything happens so fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of loved watching those like 8 turkeys come at me. I was like, I can see exactly where they are. This is great.
Yeah.
I didn't really get to enjoy it that much because I was kind of stressed out about figuring out which one to shoot. But I mean, it was still really nice to be able to just kind of like have that spot where I was planning to shoot, and it was obvious, like you said, and that was very helpful.
Yeah, and that's the struggle with hunting without decoys, is a lot of those situations do happen very fast, because where the most successful places to set up, you're setting up where that turkey doesn't have a lot of time to see that there's not a hen there. Whereas like if you're using decoys, you can set yourself up in more visible situations. But yeah, I think like just picking spots that you think could work. Maybe it's not the optimal place to set up, but there's a better opportunities or easier visual that it would be easier if one did come into that place to have a newer hunter be successful. I think that definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. What are some things as a mentor that you feel like you've picked up on? Because certainly there's been many of things for me where I'm like, man, I took that for granted. And it's like, then I kind of feel bad too, for some reason or another, because I feel like I'm putting Whitney, or anyone for that matter, in these uncomfortable positions. And that's not what I want. I think the goal really should be to not be in an uncomfortable position, but sometimes you accidentally do it because you think you're doing the right thing where you're actually just forcing the issue. Now, that's what I do, I think.
Yeah, I think like the just the understanding that being in the right position, you often have to be uncomfortable, and just being okay with being uncomfortable for a long period of time, and just understanding that's just the situation. I think that's something that gets taken for granted, I guess, or isn't as understood, where I think the initial response or initial feeling is that you want to be in a comfortable position so that you are prepared to make that shot when the opportunity presents itself. But I think just being okay with being uncomfortable and just understanding that's going to happen is something that kind of take for granted a little bit. And just like the anticipation side of it, like that's helping explain through that, and like not only saying this is what I think is going to happen, but also explaining why I think this is what's going to happen, so that the person you're mentoring can learn from it, and you don't have to explain that next time, and they can just learn from it and anticipate it. I think that's a big factor.
That's a weird one too. It's really a hard thing to explain because you just see it so many times. And I realized when I was in high school, there's a buddy of mine that I played baseball with. Really great baseball player. Really fast runner. Could beat me in a sprint. But one time we went back and we were in the woods behind my parents' house. I took off running full speed back to the house, and I beat him by like a day, you know, like it wasn't even close. And that's the moment I realized I see the woods in a different lens than him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't ever realize that. I just spent my whole life as a kid playing in the woods. Me and my brother just did, you know, weird woods kids things, you know, just like throwing sticks at trees or whatever, trying to catch frogs. And because of that, you get this lens to be able to see that path of least resistance. And then you translate that to a hunting situation, you start to see where the turkey is more than likely going to come to not only have the path of least resistance, but to see where you're calling from. And I think that really starts to help have that visualization of where he's going to go and anticipate. But it's a hard thing to for sure say in the moment. Like if turkey's coming, is that a hen?
Might have been.
I heard, yeah.
They come up right by the house.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I was that one the log hunt with Ben.
Mm-hmm.
That was one where I was trying to explain to him in the moment that I was like, it's right there. It's gonna happen right there. And he kept wanting to put the gun to the left, and I'd be like, Ben, like you know, in my head, it's like, I don't have time to tell you why, but just please point the gun right there. And that's he ended up going there, and then Ben shot the log. But it was one
Heck
of
of a log.
yeah, it was a great log. It was one of those moments though where you don't have the time to explain that. It's just like, and I don't know always if that's a good thing to give the hunter that, or if I would have just been better off letting him. I don't know if it whether he still pulls it off and moves the gun over there or not, or he moves the gun and gets, you know, spotted doing it. I don't know what's better. I really don't.
I think for me, I feel like it's helpful when you give me the opportunity to say what I think we should do. Like, you'll ask me, what do you think we should do? Like, where do you think we should sit? Where should you point it? And then I tell you, and then you can either be like, yeah, or you can be like, I'd maybe recommend doing this, because that way it gives me the chance to try and critically think through
That's
it.
good.
But
I like
then
that.
he can still set me up for success.
I really like that.
Mhm.
Do you have any examples that you remember where you nailed it?
Did I ever nail it?
I think maybe that we didn't have the turkey come in, but I think there's definitely situations where you did what I would have recommended that you did. I can't think of any off the top of my head because we didn't have success on them, but that wasn't because of what you did. It was just because the turkey didn't want to cooperate. So
That's cool.
yeah, certainly this year that I think and we didn't get to hunt too much together this year because you filled your tag in Minnesota the first day, and then trying to
You're
think
the
of the
first day,
Wisconsin
too.
hunts. Was that the first day too in Wisconsin? Oh yeah.
Yep.
So
Tagged out to her for Allie this year.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like towards the end of the last season we hunted together, certainly situations where, and even like before we ended up killing the one in Wisconsin, like pretty much every time you were on the same page as me, I think.
I like that tip though a lot. I feel like that's going to be helpful for me moving forward, because Whitney and I's experiences hunting for the most part have been with a large group, where generally I've been filming and Jake is kind of playing guide, as in he's kind of moving to get visual, or and generally Whitney's right behind. And one thing that I've told Whitney I was really proud of watching was her use of binoculars. Like, she would pop up on the edge behind Jake, and I'd see her pull up binoculars up on her own, and it's like, that's a really nice skill to start to make a habit of, because there's a lot of lifelong hunters that aren't utilizing those binoculars enough, in my opinion. I mean, I'm a huge glasser, so I like looking at stuff, but watching her pop up behind Jake and go like that, I was like, that's pretty cool. That she watching other people is another thing that I've noticed is just really helpful, and that's kind of why I like having Jake go ahead, is I can just stand back there and film and don't have to say all that much, and Whitney can kind of be between us and just, I don't know, play off of what he's doing and learn from that.
Yeah. I feel like you've gotten a lot better just like moving through the woods too, like knowing when to go fast, when to go slow. If I'm in front of you and I stop, like you stop as well, just to listen. So I think just overall woodsmanship of how to move through the woods, you've gotten a lot better at too.
That's a fun thing to
I feel
experience.
like figuring out when it's a good time to like try and call to strike one up too, versus like owl hoot at them. I feel like that's definitely been a learning curve too, because I feel like you've had different circumstances where I'm like, do you think we should try and like call and like try and find one? And you're like, no, I think we should just owl hoot, just so we don't like pull any, because he was explaining how like if you call from a spot and there is one nearby, it'll come to that spot like right where you were. He's like, and we wouldn't want it to come right here, we'd want to be in this spot if like there is one nearby. So I think that was
or you
helpful,
just
so.
you're not in a good spot and you lose the
Yeah.
opportunity to get in the good
to
spot.
get to a good spot. Yeah.
That actually just happened to us. That's another little learning experience we had. Got permission on this piece, looked beautiful, saw turkeys on the neighboring properties, but we were like, well, we could just pull in here, walk up this little, tractor path and hit a call. Well, Crystal gets out the crystal call, and she makes the, softest yelp you can make on that call, which was great because we didn't need it to be loud, because immediately a turkey started yelping back at us. And I remember thinking to myself, you shouldn't go forward, but we don't really have anywhere to go backwards, and it's like cover over here is not good. Like, our option is here, but I didn't want to go that way. and we didn't really have the time because whatever this turkey is, it's close, and we really just kind of got caught, not well. We literally got caught not even close to set up. Whitney was still in the wide open. I was just starting to get up to the tree. I hear something walking, turn around, and there's a male bird. And I never confirmed if it was a Tom or a Jake, but sure enough, 15 yards, and it just is like, gone. And Whitney didn't even see it. It all happened that fast.
Yeah.
Within 30 seconds of Crystal hitting the crystal,
Yeah.
the turkey was coming in. That was again, when you're going through these things, no matter how much experience you have, you start to realize how valuable these lessons are, and they just drive home even when it seems like a silly mistake or whatever.
Yeah. I think even if you are going to run around and blind strike before you do hit the call, that you pick out a setup before doing it. I think like our Wisconsin hunt's probably a good example of that. After when you shot your Minnesota one and we went to Wisconsin, when we were running that ridge top, like the ridge on the top, we were at the highest point. So it felt okay calling along that entire ridge top. But I don't know if you noticed it or not, but each time before I called, I was scanning around to see like if one did gobble, I had a place picked out that we would set up on.
Good to know.
That's a really, really helpful one.
Mm-hmm.
It'll really help you. And, I'm sitting here telling you this. Been turkey hunting since before I can even remember. I'm still going to make that mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Just did. Really just did.
Yeah.
Should have been paying attention when Crystal called, because I would have known my options and probably would have just had a better grasp on it. Wouldn't have had to have that decision-making time of like, oh, first time looking to the right, first time looking to the left, first time looking back. I would have already done that and at least been able to make a snap decision right now.
Mm-hmm.
Big helpful tip there. Tell you guys another funny example. Maybe you guys have any stories that relate to this. I was just running camera for anybody that would have the gun, so often was following Whitney or Crystal. And Crystal, she probably has the most experience of you three, and she's definitely shot like quite a few at this point, like even in multiple states, I think. But we were at Jake's parents' property, and we got surprised by multiple toms gobbling in there, and we got between them, set up for original setup, and they kind of met up, and one of them went all the way like across the road to the neighbors. Well, we maneuvered around and got to a position where we could hopefully see this other one before it did the same move. And on the way there, we flushed this hen, and we cross a little creek, get to the other side, and Jake's out in front, and he glasses out into the field, and he looks at us, and this is the lesson learned. Don't create panic, because the first thing Jake did was create panic, and if you know Crystal, you can create panic in Crystal pretty quick. And he's like, he's coming right at us. You got to crawl to the edge. You got to get set up because he's coming fast. And Crystal's like, okay. And Jake's like, get eyes on him and then make your move. So Jake slides out of the way. Crystal and I slide up kind of in the same lane that he had just looked down to the field. Crystal acquires target. I acquire target. And it's like, okay, we got to move fast because, yeah, he is coming fast. And as we're going, Crystal asked me a couple times, like, should we get to this tree? And is like just really hyped up. And I understand, I can relate really well, but I felt once I saw him, yeah, he's coming fast. Yeah, we certainly got to get set up, but we got time. And that's something that in turkey hunting I value a lot more now than I did when I was younger, is you got time. I used to think all the time that we got to get set up and not move. But I realize is you get more reps under your belt, taking that deep breath and just being like, hey, we got all the time in the world. I mean, maybe it's only 2 minutes, but that's a lot of time when you're hunting, you know. And we certainly had, 2 minutes for him coming across that field. And we finally get kind of to the end of the road where it's like we're about to go out into the field, and we get set up, and there's a really strange buffer right there where there's this really stemmy, like willow-type plant growing 10 yards out into the field, right at the corner. Well, sure enough, he goes to the left of that, and we have no lane to our left. It's just a wall of green brush. He gets super close to us in the end and sees something he doesn't like, putts away. And it's one of those deals where afterwards you sit there and you really break it down in your head and you look around, you take that extra second too, even if it's after the fact. Ideally you do it before you strike, but in this situation we get a visual, he's coming at us, we got to get set up. Had we just taken a deep breath and been like, okay, what's the best option? There was a perfectly open trail this way, and then we could have went that way. He'd have kissed the gun barrel. Had we just made that move, you know, but instead Jake goes, you got to get set up, and we automatically start thinking forward, which is natural. I've realized that with almost all turkey hunters. We always almost want to always go forward. In this situation, had we just went this way, it'd have been physically easier. We'd have had more cover. We ultimately would have had a better setup with more shooting lanes, and all those three things are exactly what we didn't have on the route we took.
Yeah.
And I even went back a couple days later and stood in that same spot and filmed the whole little segment of me running through the whole scene again, telling what we did versus what in hindsight we should have done or could have tried at least. I can't guarantee that would have worked, but man, it would have been a heck of a lot better odds. And I just think, again, lesson of that for hunting with a newer hunter is don't create panic. Don't run out of time, you know. Don't make it seem like you're going to run out of time, because that just makes things worse, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you ever feel that way?
Oh, yeah. I get really excited every time that I hear the turkey. I'm like, where do we gotta go? So I can relate to that. I feel as though Crystal and I are pretty similar.
Definitely.
For sure.
And then what's funny about that is Whitney is more similar to Hayden and Jake, and I think I'm actually more similar to y'all in personality.
I agree.
It's actually quite
For
hilarious.
Sure.
It's like
Yeah.
you need that balance on the other hand. Where it's like, you know, Whitney won't say much at all throughout the entire experience, and afterwards be like, my heart was racing and blah, you know, like that was super intense. But in the moment, she's just like super quiet. Where Crystal, the entire time, is just like, should I pull the hammer back? Should I, you know, like, should I move? Can I move? Am I in the sun too much? You know, it's just so funny. I like both versions of like, you know, because you filmed Jake too, or you, it's gonna kind of be the same thing, just kind of quiet over there. It's like, hello, anybody home?
I feel like that's you most of the time. It's just me talking at him most of the time. So it's really good that he's a great listener.
I actually have had very similar experiences with Hayden where I'm just talking at him, I think.
We talked about that on the last podcast. I told him about
He's
how
great for
when he
that.
was on the phone with me in the warehouse and I just put him on speakerphone and muted him and just kept working.
Muted you mean?
I just muted my
Yeah.
mic and then kept working. You were there when I
Yep.
was doing that. You thought that was quite
But
funny.
he's actually listening. It's not like
I
he's
believe,
yeah,
I
because
believe
Yeah.
that.
sometimes I quiz him. I'm like, "Are you actually listening to me?" He's like, "Yeah, you just said blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, okay."
It's kind of funny how you start to recognize those personality types and how it works, you know. And I think that in a hunting situation, especially, obviously in a relationship situation, it works itself out. Hunting situation, I think, is also really beneficial too, because you play off of those two, I don't know, personality types, or like Crystal called it, big emotions. You know, Jake has pretty small emotions, at least visibly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Crystal, on the other hand,
she shows her big
she
emotions.
shows them. And I think it's just cool to see that balance. But on the other hand, even Jake, in that situation, he pulled some big emotion out, got the panic started, and then it created problems.
Well, I think if you had panicked, then I'd really be panicked.
Yeah.
I'd be like, "This is not normal."
Yeah. And I know you've got those big emotions, so I try to be extra calm, just not to incite that.
I feel that that's why, like, even Jake and I, in a lot of hunting situations, I've said this many a times, his lack of getting fired up about things, it's not even that he's fired up, it's just that he doesn't get worked up, I guess is probably a better way to put it. Like, he'll just be reasonable with me and just say what I need to hear And that varies a lot, but there's been so many examples where he's just like, well, we could just do this. And it's like, yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but I also was thinking 5 million things, but you just really helped me narrow it down to this one right now. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of wasting a bunch of time thinking about things too much. I guess any final thoughts on just getting into hunting, things you've learned, things that you're excited about applying to the future? Either one?
I think I'm excited to go deer hunting with her more because I think we've only deer hunted together a couple times, and I think before we met, the conception of deer hunting is a lot different than what it is now. And like, you really like the active part of turkey hunting, and I'm looking forward to showing you that that can take place in deer hunting as well, and take those things you learn from turkey hunting and apply that to deer hunting. So I think that's something I'm looking forward to doing, is just deer hunting from a different perspective than what you've historically been used to.
I think I am still gonna love turkey hunting more though, because I really enjoy the interaction between the turkeys and us. I like that they're vocal, where deer are just, they're quiet. You gotta sneak up kind of more. So, but
I like the act of turkey hunting more than deer hunting, but I like that final moment of deer hunting is just far more intense.
Yeah.
But I definitely like the act of turkey hunting
it's
a
a lot
lot
of fun.
better.
Yeah.
If you're interested in my opinion on comparing the two, I would say that I like the process of deer hunting because generally it takes multiple days, but that final moment is extremely intense. But you take all those experiences you've had from turkey hunting and you put them right into that final moment, like that anticipating, the making sure you're in a comfortable position. When I'm thinking about bow hunting on the ground for whitetails, it's just this extremely amplified version of all that stuff coming together in a turkey hunt too. And I really don't think that I would be able to have the confidence that I do in bow hunting situations if it wasn't for turkey hunting. And as those things have come like closer together in the style, it's become a no-brainer that they're both just as fun as the other. It's just different, slightly different game.
I'm excited to experience that side of deer hunting. So I think that'll make me enjoy it a lot more, and just as much as turkey hunting.
No more falling out of trees, hanging tree stands.
No more. Just saddles, right?
Yeah.
Hey, or you could just be exclusively off the ground. It really adds some intensity. I really think that, again, going back to having similar personalities, probably a good chance you're gonna like bow hunting on the ground.
I'd think so. I think I'd get pretty excited.
I mean, oh man, Whitney just got a bow too, so I'm hoping that we can,
Fun.
figure that out a little bit as well. You have a bow too, right?
Yep.
I think you, Crystal, and Whitney all have the same Bear Legit.
Yeah.
Is that the one you got me?
That's the one you got. And you'd bow hunted before I even met you too.
Yep. I got my first deer that fall we met.
Yep.
Tell me, I guess. Sorry, this is at the end, but we can plop it in wherever. Tell me about how you got into hunting, because I don't know that I've ever actually asked you that. Maybe
Well,
I have.
I feel like my dad's always gone gun hunting.
Yep.
And that was pretty much the extent of like a couple people in my family do. And so I just was interested in like going with him and stuff. So I started gun hunting. I think I went through hunter safety in like 8th grade. I decided to do it. But honestly, nobody else in my family, at least like my dad and stuff, don't really bow hunt. And so I just always thought it was super cool. And one summer I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a bow. And I did. And then I started just kind of like learning how to do it like independently and like with YouTube and stuff. And then finally got my first deer. And I was doing a lot of things wrong. And so when I met Hayden, he helped me a lot, which was really nice. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to do it. Decided to just send it one day and buy a bow. And
That's really cool.
yeah, I'm really glad I did, because it's fun even just to shoot like our bows together and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I feel like something that is interesting to me and something I would like to see change in my lifetime is I want to see more women involved in hunting. I really do think that there's something wrong with the fact that there isn't more. So that's why I really enjoy seeing you out there doing it, seeing Crystal out there doing it, seeing Whitney out there doing it. It's one of my favorite things right now is helping Whitney get involved in it, hoping to build her confidence to where, she hopefully one day enjoys it as much as we do, I think that it's just kind of strange that it's not as popular. You look at all the other outdoor recreation activities.
I feel like there's a decent amount of girls actually that I went to high school with that do, but I think it was just like our community thing.
Maybe.
And it was all gun. It's a huge like gun deer community. We even had like a slip you could fill out in high school where you'd get excused from school.
Really?
Yeah, to go deer hunting the whole week. Because I can think of like I think there was like at least 6 other girls
Really?
that went in my grade. I
That's
think
pretty
so.
cool.
Yeah, it was a decent amount.
I just think that changing that norm would be cool.
Mm.
Although, did you guys see maybe my favorite comment on the turkey tour on Instagram
No.
when we posted like the reel?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Just can't even believe this is real. But the comment said, there's some stuff in between, but don't do this, guys. This is a men's public land hunting show.
Yeah.
And I was just like, who says who? I didn't catch the
Wait.
memo.
Men hunting the public.
Men hunting the public.
Wait, what?
is
Did
this?
you forget a word?
What is this? Men hunting public?
Small script, it's up there.
Oh, I see.
I don't know. To me, I think it's really cool because there's no reason that any women couldn't be really skilled at hunting. And it doesn't even have to be a, spouse or a boyfriend to get them into it. I don't think it has to be that at all. And that's why it's really cool that you just bought a bow and went. I mean, because it is a great way to spend time together. And ultimately, I think that's something that happens. But at the same time, I don't know. I just think the whole idea of, like, you and Crystal and Whitney, if you guys went hunting together, I would love to, like, just stand in the background and film that.
Yeah.
Or
I think
just
it would
have
be a
you
good
guys
time.
find a way to rig up cameras to where you could film it yourselves, and maybe not miss everything.
I was gonna say I think I have to work on my filming skills a little bit.
You'll get better over time.
Just clip a GoPro to me. That
Yeah.
I can handle it as long as it's stabilized.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be really cool to me because I think that's when it really takes off. It's like if let's say there's plenty of kids out there that are watching, men's and women's sports, boys and girls, and they're watching these athletes get really good at a sport, and then it was this way for me. It certainly was for Hayden. I would assume it would be the same for you, Allie, where you're watching these athletes. You're like, I want to be that. But if all of a sudden girls are watching women hunting on YouTube, I feel like that's how we get more people started doing it. It's like, wow, I want to be like Allie. I want to be like Crystal, Whitney, whatever. I think that'd be pretty dang cool. I think so. Just because, again, I don't know why anybody would ever think that this should be a men's public land hunting show. To me, it just doesn't really make any sense. I just think that's cool. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a weirdo.
I don't think so. I enjoy hunting with Allie a lot. It's fun watching her out there learning and having fun. Lots of fun no matter who you are.
Yeah, I feel like every time we go, it's a good time.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Well, I guess if you guys have any final thoughts, let them rip.
None for me, I don't think.
No.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk about it. Really enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.
Peace. That's what we do.
Yeah, you
Okay.
piece it.
All
You
right.
can peace if you want.